I'm often very fond of saying I'm not the arbiter of what you should or shouldn't do on a cruise, but I don't mind sharing my opinions on what you should or shouldn't do on a cruise. And perhaps no other place is more apparent than the main dining room because there are, I feel, a lot of unwritten rules that go with it. Royal Caribbean, I think, purposefully keeps it very vague as to what you should or shouldn't do in the main dining room, beyond the like really core rules. But I feel like the more you eat in the main dining room, the more you discover there are certain things that kind of go with the territory, if you will. And today I've got some etiquette rules, some unwritten rules about the main dining room to talk about because I feel like they're things that if you're new to the main dining room, then certainly I'd want to know about it if I was that person. You never want to be that guy. That's always my mantra on a cruise. Just don't be that guy. Don't cause problems. All things otherwise, you're good. So number one, and this one, you might say, well, this one goes without saying, but I do feel like there is that. I want to kind of go into how late is late, but don't be late for dinner. The main dining room, you have a set time. If you have my time dining, I guess this is less of an issue because if you're late to dinner, they'll just seat you at the next seating, so not a problem. But for traditional dining, you have a seating time. Now, obviously, things happen. You get stuck in an elevator, your kids forget something, whatever. So how late is late for dinner? I guess is really the question. Certainly 5-10 minutes, no problem at all. I mean, I don't think they even, in many cases, you're lucky if you can get your drink order in within the first 10 minutes of your assigned time. It really gets into that 15 to 30 minute window where it starts becoming you're late. And there's a little bit of that X factor. Again, sometimes the waiters do get behind and then you get to sneak in and you're not that far behind. I mean, the waiters also will, to their credit, work you in, so to speak. We've seen it many times where someone's running well behind, they come in and they take their order even so. So obviously if you're seated with someone who, someone in your party is going to be knows you're going to be late, you can also tell them that. But I generally say like around 20 minutes or so after that, you're late to dinner and you should seek alternatives, personally, is my opinion on it. That being said, you could also ask for food to go. That's another little trick. I have had it where someone's not feeling well, and whether I want food or they want food, the head waiter will send food up to your room if you'd like. It's kind of a not an advertised thing, but if you're like, listen, we're not going to be able to make dinner tonight, but we'd really like to have this appetizer, an entree, or something for later. They're usually more than happy to send that up to you, and you don't. There's no fee with it. I mean, again, this is more of a your mileage may vary kind of situation, so don't quote me on it. But it's been my experience that if you're that's kind of a workaround if you know that you can't make it, but you still want to enjoy dinner on some level for whatever reason. Number two, the dress codes. Man, this has been a topic since the beginning of this blog that has never really gotten a really good resolution. There are dress codes in the main dining room. Most of them are suggested. If you read them verbatim, it literally says these are suggested attire. There are a few, like, I think there are two things you absolutely cannot wear, although I think I've seen at least one in the main dining room: bathing suits and tank tops. I like to always share the story. My father-in-law got kicked out of the main dining room for wearing a tank top. It was for lunch, not for dinner. But it was always funny because he's like the least offensive person on earth, and was just wearing I was up on the pool deck and wearing a tank top, and anyway, the rest of it is really subjective. And in my experience, Royal really doesn't enforce any rules. They're not going to kick you out unless you are wearing flagrantly, come in a bikini. I think I've seen it once, but but I feel like you're probably not going to get kicked out short of that. There are dress codes. There are the theme nights. Every night in the cruise compass, as well as in the Royal Caribbean app, there is a listing there that has what technically the theme is: dress your best, casual, and then there's Caribbean and things like that. And they're all just simply suggestions. In fact, I feel like we had an episode a little while ago where it's the dressing up for the main dining room has, I feel like the desire to dress up for the main dining room has gone down in popularity, but the desire to dress up for theme nights on the Royal Promenade and whatnot has gone up dramatically. I think this is like the pajama effect. Everybody started wearing matching pajamas for Christmas, and then it became, well, let's just wear matching pajamas on a cruise ship, and then it became, now let's get matching outfits. And so it's nice that you have kind of that trend there. But for the main dining room, really, I would just simply say respect the dress code, but there's suggestions. Don't overthink it. Don't lose sleep over it or worry that you'll be ostracized if you're not wearing and a tuxedo or anything like that. Number three is tell your waiter if you need a faster meal. And this is definitely like just in general, like there could be a show you have to go see. You have an obligation, perhaps you're working remotely, hypothetically, I don't know. But you have a need to be able to get out of the restaurant earlier. You definitely want to communicate that. They're very good about it. It's actually amazing when you tell them you need to be out in 45 minutes and they just all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is how fast this meal could be all the time. But they really can work with what you need. But you got to tell them about it. I think the biggest problem I run into is folks who complain later on after the fact. We were supposed to go see the show or do this thing, activity, whatever, and it took too long, and then they didn't communicate it. Kind of expecting a certain thing. Even if you think you don't need to communicate, like let's say it's more than an hour until your time, I would still at least let them know just to make sure, especially if there are things like my favorite activity of all time in the main dining room, the napkin twirling or the dancing or any other thing that kind of adds another 10, 15 minutes into the mix. It's better to communicate those things ahead of time. So definitely important. And then of course there's that fine line between not wasting food and of course trying food, which I love about the main dining room. Royal Caribbean's very cognizant of food waste, and I think as vacationers, I don't think I've ever gotten any crew members ever said, you're wasting food, sir, right? But I think it's our due diligence to do the right thing, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with ordering food to try it, um, to sample a food, and it's okay if you don't like it. It's actually happened to me when I was on Brilliance of the Seas, and I ordered the Indian vegetarian, and it came out, and it was green beans. And I'm sure there are many people who love their green beans. I am not one of them. And I told the waiter, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was green beans. I thought maybe some other vegetables, but and it's totally understandable. But obviously, what you don't want to do is just be gluttonous or ordering food for the sake of ordering food. I really should say, almost as a joke. I remember like one of our first cruises when we were like teenagers. My sister dared me to order, one thing, everything on the menu, like one of everything on the menu. I didn't do it, but that kind of a thing would be obviously over the top there. So it's good to try food. And actually, I think it's really the best place to try new foods because there's very little risk involved. But you don't want to be wasteful. And kind of piggybacking on something we talked about earlier, you can also order food to go. And this is actually something that a lot of the waiters will suggest to you, especially for dessert. If you are eating and you are feeling full, they can offer you the food in to-go containers, whether you want an entree, a dessert, whatever. It's something you can ask for. Again, these are like things that they're not advertised, not posted, but you can definitely ask for, which is really nice. If you have a balcony or a suite or something like that, take your dessert back to the balcony and enjoy it over there. If you have, perhaps there is spaghetti bolognese and one just isn't enough for you, but you want it a little later, take it back up to the room and enjoy it. You can't, the only catch is, I guess, you can't really reheat. There's no microwave in your room. So it's definitely, desserts are good because they usually stay fairly well. Other foods depends on how you like them, lukewarm or not. But it can be a nice way to, and again, if you have a balcony, it's great. You could also just take it up to a public deck. There's no open carry laws on Royal Caribbean ships, and there's no restrictions on taking your food. I think a lot of people are actually surprised that you can take food anywhere on the ship. You can take it out of the dining room or out of the restaurant to do that. And they're more than happy to do so. They'll just basically take the plate, have a cover for it, and you're off to the races. So that can be a really nice, it's kind of almost like a hack, if you will. And then last but not least, but I feel like we should probably talk about as an unwritten rule, is when you're seated with friends at the main dining room. There are many topics to discuss, but one of them probably isn't, controversial topics. Things that might get you into a awkward situation later on, after the fact. And this is, I think, just general etiquette in general about what you shouldn't talk about at dinner time. But some ideas you should talk about as a way to kind of keep the conversation going without delving into those other topics. Your cruising experience, what you did earlier that day, plans for tomorrow, the weather, sports teams, although it can get dicey with the Boston fans out there. And then, of course, movies, entertainment, things that just, keep it light. It's not worth it to get in. You're not going to convince anybody at a dinner table, especially strangers, of convincing them of your opinion on certain third rail topics out there. But the good news is, the main dining room is pretty easygoing. I think a lot of new cruisers are intimidated by it because it does look like a 5-star restaurant. It's very fancy. It's ornate, but it's not nearly as crazy, if you will, as in terms of their policies and whatnot. It's very casual, in fact. And hopefully with these unwritten rules, you'll have a better chance of going about it without any issues. All right, friends, time to answer listener emails. It's part of the episode where I answer emails you sent me all about Royal Caribbean. You can just email me, matt@royalcaribbeanblog.com. First email is from Jacob Butterfield. My wife and I are going on our first cruise. We have to, I think, fly to the port, what they meant to say here. We're leaving out of San Juan. Wow, this is appropriate because I'm recording this episode on a cruise that sailed out of San Juan. We're leaving out of San Juan. We'll be flying in the day before. Do you have any recommendations for hotels and activities to do or places to go for the night before the cruise? Any suggestions would be appreciated. Yeah, so recently we stayed at the Hotel Rumbau, which used to be the Sheraton in Old San Juan. I think if you're coming in and you have enough time to spend to see or want to see Old San Juan, I'd recommend staying in a hotel in Old San Juan. The reason being is that you can easily walk out of your hotel on foot, explore. You're not reliant on a taxi or anything like that. I think that would be the thing to do. If you're coming in at, 10 o'clock at night or something like that, and all you're doing is you just need a hotel to stay at, I'd probably pick a hotel that is either near the airport or in New San Juan. The Carolina neighborhood is fantastic. That's where you'll find the beaches, actually. But again, the problem with those is it's very much just they're resorts, and you're not going to get any. It's a hike to get back and see historical sites. But in terms of if you're staying in Old San Juan, I think it's really advantageous because there's so many cool things to do. There are, historical sites. There's restaurants. It's great for meandering. It's one of the best places to simply walk and explore. It's a lot like Europe in that regard, in that it's just very approachable, and that's why I do recommend staying there. Your cruise ship is going to sail out of probably the Pan American Pier, which is across the harbor, so you can't walk there. So that'll be a lift ride, but I would argue no matter where you stay, it's going to be an Uber ride of some kind to go there. So I think personally, stay in Old San Juan, enjoy. There's other hotels there as well. There's the Convento Hotel. There's Airbnbs, but I've stayed at every single time I've cruised out of San Juan, I've stayed in the former Sheraton, now Hotel Rumbau, which is a Marriott resort, and it's worked out really, really well. Next email is from Carl Schaffner. Hi, Matt. I have a question about points choice, but status matching factors in as well. I'm currently diamond status on Royal Caribbean with 95 points. We normally stay in suites. I have achieved this since my first Royal Caribbean cruise in 2023. I've been hooked ever since. On Royal Caribbean, I get 2 Crown and Anchor points, whether I'm in a junior suite or a star class suite. On Celebrity, it looks like different suites get you different points. For instance, I would get 8 points sailing in a Sky Suite, but 12 in a Celebrity Suite. Celebrity Suite is our room of choice on Celebrity because of the bedroom door. Petty, I know. We have only ever cruised Royal Caribbean, but we have an Alaska cruise booked on Celebrity in a Celebrity Suite. This is our first Celebrity cruise and currently have 0 points at Captain's Club. As I get older, I'm 54, I have a feeling we'll cruise on Celebrity a bit more. For my first question, is the status match a one-time thing, or would I automatically be upgraded to Elite Plus or Zenith as I hit Diamond Plus or Pinnacle, respectively? I've seen both online. The answer to this question would alone probably make the decision easier. And the answer is they'll move you up. This happened to me. I started off as, I believe, Diamond Plus when I took my first Celebrity cruise. Then became Pinnacle, and I went from Elite Plus to Zenith. So that's not a problem at all. My second question is, since I'm sailing in a higher end Celebrity suite at Celebrity, would I choose the 84 points towards getting, or the 14 points added in my Royal Caribbean Crown and Anchor to get Diamond Plus faster? I feel like you should go with your Crown and Anchor. You already have status there. You're going to climb that ladder faster. Yes, I understand you get more points overall with Celebrity, but it's like it's not skewed. It's a different measurement. It's like saying if I measure my kilometers per gallon, I get more than in miles per gallon. I think that holds up, that analogy. But it doesn't matter. I think you're much better off at just staying with your Crown and Anchor, building that up, because as you mentioned, if you move up from Diamond Plus, you'll get the equivalent Elite Plus status in Celebrity. Not to mention the fact that the Royal Caribbean benefits on the Royal Caribbean side are superior, which is almost irrelevant, but I mean, it's just better to build that side up than to start investing in Celebrity. With points choice, there's absolutely no reason to go back to Celebrity Captain's Club to earn your points there, unless you simply want the bragging rights that you have it, and you cruise so much so that would be the case, but I can't see a use case that would make any sense to to build your points up there. It just, now with points choice, it doesn't make sense. Back before points choice, you could have made the argument, but no. Yeah, so Carl, thanks for the email. Appreciate that. Next email is coming to us from Joe and Sarah. My wife and I are longtime cruisers and platinum status on Carnival, but after taking our first Royal Caribbean cruise back in 2019, we're fully converted to Royal Caribbean and never looked back. I've watched your videos for years, but my wife and I recently subscribed to your podcast. In a recent episode, you mentioned cruising with your 16-year-old daughter. We love how you mentioned how great it is cruising with her because we love traveling with our daughters as well, they're 3 and 5. I decided to go back and listen to one of your early episodes, Cruising with Kids in 2014. And here you talk about cruising with your daughter when she was 3. It's really cool to hear how passionate you were about family cruising over a decade ago and how your family still travels together today. The advice and tips you covered back then still stand, even though services have evolved. We love your enthusiasm and share your love for cruising. Hope to run into you in future cruise. Keep up the great work. We need more young kids, family cruising content to help keep the kids excited for upcoming cruises. We have 2 cruises booked for this year. Well, thank you for the email, Joe and Sarah. Cruising with kids has definitely been an adventure. I jokingly now say that families have it so much easier than we had it back in the day. We didn't have nurseries. We didn't have Splashaway Bay. We barely had water slides. In fact, we didn't have water slides back in the day. I remember going on Jewel of the Seas when we only had 1 kid, and we had a good time on the cruise. This is back in 2013, I think. But it was like, we're never going on a rating splash ship with them again because there's nothing for them to do on there. Now you have Surfside, you have so many activities. Adventure Ocean has changed leaps and bounds. So it's gotten so much better. I almost regret that my kids are too old to have enjoyed Surfside truly or anything like that. We kind of missed out on that bus. But hey, for the families going now, I mean, geez, it's so much better. Next email is from Ian Tewksbury. AKA Tukes Vegas. Good morning, Matt. Thanks for answering my question about the main dining room and bringing wine on board during our upcoming Mediterranean cruise. Extremely helpful. I discovered another question the other day about onboard laundry and having a tough time finding the answer. I found contradicting answers on the Royal Caribbean website. One talks about a cost per article of clothing, and the other talks about a bag of laundry for $35. In addition, it talked about Diamond, Crown, and Anchor members getting $10 off a bag, getting help this first-time traveler going to the Med. So the answer is everything you described is the thing. That's where the confusion lies. So on the surface, you can send out laundry on a per item basis. That's the very basic thing. It's kind of like if you've ever been to a hotel, you've seen that bag in there. You say, okay, I've got 2 shirts, a pants, whatever, and then you get charged per item. That's strictly the basic level. But Royal Caribbean also offers the bag of laundry deal. Usually, I don't know if it's available every day of the cruise, like on day 1 as an example, but it's available at some point. They advertise it anyway later on in the cruise, assuming. And basically, it's an incentive to get you to, use the laundry services. In this case, you fill the bag of laundry, which is a paper bag, and you got to be careful when stuffing it because it rips very easily. But you can stuff it with, as many clothings as you can. You do need to itemize each item in there. And that's a flat fee. So the benefit here is if you're very good at stuffing that bag, you can get more bang for your dollar. On top of that, Crown and Anchor members, I forget where it starts for the $10 off, but you get a discount on that special. So it's a little lower, and you describe that. If you get the Diamond Plus, then you get a free bag of laundry on 5-night cruises or longer, which is one of my favorite underrated Crown and Anchor benefits. It's essentially the same bag of laundry that you can stuff for $35, but it's free. So this is really great for packing on a 7-night cruise. My wife will never do it, but I will account for the bag of laundry in my math in my head when I'm packing, that I don't need as many pairs of pants, or I could reuse them, and you can send them out for that. So that's why there's a little bit of confusion, because everything you heard was correct. It's just a lot of different things that weren't kind of articulated in the right way. So there you go. Next question is from Leonard Waters II. I live in Ohio, and I'm thinking about taking a cruise out of Cape Liberty because it's drivable for me. I've only cruised out of Fort Lauderdale and Miami. I was wondering if you ever cruised out of Cape Liberty, and if it's terrible to drive there, if you have any tips for the port. Thanks for all the great content. I have cruised out of there. It is not as efficient or as fast as, say, somewhere in Florida, but it's still pretty darn good. It's gotten better. The worst thing I say about Cape Liberty is the drive-in. There's one way in, one way out, and it can get very backed up. If you're sailing on He didn't say which ship he's on. When I did Liberty of the Seas, there wasn't any traffic at all when we got there. But if you do an Oasis class ship, a Quantum class ship, there can be a lot of traffic. That being said, I don't want to scare you. It's not like you'll be there for an hour in traffic, but it's like, bring a nice podcast episode to listen to while you're sitting there in traffic, because it'll take you a little bit to go there. Other than that, it's gotten a lot better, especially with the new express boarding and all those things that make it a little bit faster. The terminal itself is not as impressive as, say, the new one in Galveston or the one in Miami or Port Canaveral. It's more utilitarian, but it's fine. So I can simply tell you that it's not terrible to drive there, but you will probably have some sort of a traffic backup. If you're parking, there is parking at the port. There's a garage, which back in my day, we didn't have no garage. We just parked outside. There is a surface lot too. The parking garage is fantastic because the parking garage attaches to the cruise terminal. It's kind of like the one in Port Canaveral. So it's really easy, but I believe that one can fill up, so there's a surface lot as well. Anyway, they have that option there. Yes, it's expensive, but if you ask me, for the convenience factor alone, it's just worth it to be able to get in your car and drive and leave and not have to worry about shuttles or anything like that. It's the way to characterize Cape Liberty is it's certainly fine to go there. It's not on my list of places of cruise terminals where you kind of like, but it's totally fine. So you're good there. And our last email today is coming to us from. I gotta find a good one here. Let's go with Isaac's question. Hi, Matt. I've been on 2 cruises with family growing up, and then a cruise with 2 college buddies a few years ago, but never with Royal Caribbean. Now I'm going with the same 2 buddies, but 2 of us are now recently engaged, and we'll be bringing our fiancés. We're so excited. We'll be in Rhapsody of the Seas in a couple weeks. Out of the whole group, I'm the one who's getting crazy obsessed doing all the research, so I've listened to many of the podcasts. While I'm feeling slight FOMO on the mega ships, I'm super excited for the vibe that Rhapsody offers, and I'm hoping my fiancé loves it and will one day want to go on a mega ship. Sorry for all the background info, but here's my actual question. My fiancé and I are really interested in the Behind the Waves tour, but it isn't cheap. However, for 2 hours, I think it'd be great. Do you think it would be less worth it on Rhapsody, though? If I think I may go on a bigger ship in the future, would it be better doing that tour in that setting? Good question. I would tell you, I don't think it matters as much. I often joke about the behind-the-scenes tour is fantastic, by the way. This is the behind-the-scenes tour that allows you to go to the bridge, the engine room, the recycling or garbage room, whatever you want to call it, the ship's galley. People always ask me, is it worth it? And I say, close your eyes unless you're driving. And think to yourself, would it be cool to see these places? And usually, some people would say, my wife would say no. I would say yes, and it's really cool, and it is worth doing in that case if you close your eyes and think to yourself, because it's really neat to see how these ships operate. That being said, in my experience, how do I say this? I don't mean this in a negative way, although it's going to sound like it. If you've seen one cruise ship engine room, bridge, you've seen them all. They're very similar by design. They're not meant for guests. They're not like, hey, we got to build a new Oasis class ship. Let's make the bridge look totally different. Although the Icon bridge does look different. They have it's all digital, whereas on the older ships, it's more not gauges, I guess is the best way to describe it. But honestly, they're more or less the same. They're not reinventing the wheel for these things. So if you saw it on Rhapsody, I don't think you'd be doing yourself a disservice or anything like. It's not like seeing a '67 Chevy versus a 2004 Chevy or something like that. I don't know if that makes any sense, but they're more or less the same. So I think you're totally fine doing on Rhapsody, and going there. The only ship I would say is worth doing, you could consider doing it, would be on the Icon class, because the bridge is really impressive. It looks like Star Trek. It actually, the gauges, they're not gauges, they're screens, they're LED screens. They actually lift up and down. It's like, it's not a HUD, but it's like, I can't describe this nearly as well on a podcast, but you can't see what I'm doing, but it just kind of rises and comes down. It's really neat. It looks different. But the engine room, the galley, the trash room, they all look virtually identical to each other. So, but it's definitely worth doing, and I think it's a great idea for you to check it out on your first cruise on Rhapsody. Thank you, Isaac, for the email. Thank you for everybody for checking out this episode of the Royal Caribbean Blog podcast. Of course, you can always email me your questions, matt@royalcaribbeanblog.com, matt@royalcaribbeanblog.com. Until next time, I'm Matt. We'll talk again real soon.